Our basic form of a parabola is y equals x squared, and we know that looks something like this. So we have our basic shape. It goes through the origin, that's its vertex right there. And what we've looked at on Wednesday was how we can move it left to right. And moving left to right, we have a look at what the x is doing. And to move it left and right along the x-axis, we replace x with x minus something. And that something is how far we've moved it one way or the other. So a basic form looking like this means that we have moved h units to the right. Now, to remember that we've moved to the right and we have this minus, we already talked about the straight line y equals x and how moving it up also moves it left. And so moving to the left and up are sort of related, and moving to the right and down are sort of related. But when we're talking about moving our parabolas and cubic curves and hyperbolas, all of these things around, there are some basic things that we can do. Every time you take x and you replace it with x minus h, you move it h units to the right. And every time you take y and replace it with y minus k, here I've just taken a basic parabola and I've replaced the y with y minus k. We're going to move the parabola k units up. Now this doesn't really sound right because it doesn't sort of look like we're going up when we've taken something away. But if I was to rewrite this way, by adding k to both sides of the equation, you can see that by tacking on a plus k at the end, I've basically taken this whole graph here and just shifted it up k units. So the way that I like to remember it is that if you take whatever the x is doing and change that, so here the x is being squared, so the thing that's being squared can be changed, you'll move it left and right. And remembering which way to go, if it's got a minus here, we're moving to the right, and if it's a plus, then we're moving to the left. And then moving your graph up and down, we're looking at what's been tacked onto the end. And that's because something that's tacked onto the end has actually just been subtracted from the other side. And we can change the form of that by moving it across to here. So it's not the k that's being squared, the x is still squared, and then we have plus k at the end, and that will shift the whole graph up or down. And this is a more logical way to look at the direction, because if this is a plus, it's gone up, and if it's a minus, it's gone down. So to give you a few examples, if we had a graph that looked something like this tells us that we need to move our basic parabola, one of these, 3 units to the right and 2 units up. So the easiest way to draw that is to just think about where the vertex is. Instead of being at 0, 0, it's going to be across 3 and up 2. It will be here at 3, 2. And then we can draw in our basic shape. Obviously, the other thing we need to include would be the y-intercept. Sorry, I've gone through that, made a bit of a mess. But if we were to expand this out and think about what our term would be on the end, or if you want to find the y-intercept, just let x equal 0. If x is 0, here we have 9 plus 2. It's quite easy to work out that that will be 11. And we've drawn the graph, that's all we need to have. Now you'll notice here that we already learnt about putting a parabola in vertex form before we thought about moving things around. And this fits in perfectly because we know that the basic form of a parabola, when it's in this vertex form, looks like this, where the vertex is hk. And that's exactly what we have here. We have x minus h, so h is 3, plus k, and we have plus 2, and that explains why our vertex is 3, 2.